Love you but I hate you, but I love you but I hate you, but I love you but I hate you. Why are you ruining my life?
In my last video, which I will link up here, should you want to look at that if you haven't looked at it yet. Oh, that's my paper falling in places. I talked about TV addiction and why understanding the ADHD brain and how it works can finally free you from feeling like all of this time it has been your fault that you have struggled to pull yourself away from the TV. Thank you so much for all of your comments. I think it really hit home to me not only how much of a common problem this is, but also how much it is tied to us just feeling like really bad about ourselves. And I talked about TV specifically in that video, but what I meant from that really is consuming like movies and TV. So TV for me, because I watch all of my like streaming services on my TV, that's the main issue. So for me, it's Netflix mainly. I mean, I think I have like 5 streaming services at the moment, which is probably part of the issue. But that's what I personally get sucked into. But lots of you were talking in the comments about YouTube, right? It's the same kind of mechanism behind it. It's the same struggle. Slightly different ways I think of managing it, but YouTube, TV streaming services, video games as well. Video games are a huge one for just pulling your attention into something, and then 6, 7, 8 hours pass by, you haven't been able to get yourself away, and now you're left just feeling like actually kind of broken by the fact that you just don't seem to have the willpower or the self-discipline to do what you know is good for you. If you want a big dose of validation as to why it is not your fault, watch the previous video. But in this video today, I'm going to share some tips to help you manage that compulsive, obsessive desire to consume that content, whatever it might be. Now, the place to start, and thank you so much because it was actually your comments on that last video that reminded me and showed me actually how important it is to have this first stage in there before we dive into the tips and the techniques, is growing your awareness and your understanding of what is it that is driving you to be compulsively consuming content. Because there will be different reasons, and with that, different ways that you can deal with it. So for me, there are 3 main reasons. The first one is just pure habit. I am so used to going downstairs in the morning, turning the TV on. It has become a habit. I just mindlessly do it. I don't think about it really. I'm just there I am. Oh, I'm in front of the TV. And then it opens up the possibility for me to get sucked in and get stuck. This is actually what happened to me yesterday. I was supposed to record this video yesterday, but I came downstairs, didn't have a lot of structure for the day. It was like self-imposed structure. And I just turned the TV on and I started watching Jane the Virgin, which I mentioned in my last video. And it didn't particularly I didn't think it would grab me. It was just a habit and it was supposed to be there in the background. But then I got sucked in, and then it wasn't until 6:30 p.m. in the evening that I managed to get myself out. But I did manage to get myself out. But the point is, a lot there that could have been avoided if I just stopped myself from that habitual thing of like turning on the TV. The second reason that I binge watch shows is when I'm avoiding a bad feeling, right? A huge one for me is when I feel like I'm in waiting mode. So if I have something coming at like 2 p.m. and I'm nervous about it or I'm preoccupied with it, I will watch TV and get sucked into the world of online content because I feel preoccupied and anxious and distracted by something that's coming, and I just want to like not think about it. This is really common, I think, for us when we're in that ADHD paralysis, where we're overwhelmed with everything that we think we should or could or might or need to do, and it's all swirling around our head, and we don't know where to start, and there's no clarity, and it's overwhelming, and it's just, of course, what you want to do is create safety for yourself and just get under your blanket and watch TV compulsively. And that's what I do, and that's what I've done a lot. I've got some tips to help with that shortly. And lastly, and to be honest, this was mostly what I was referring to in the last video, for me is this compulsive need to watch TV. There is a show and I have to know what happens next. I need to know whether the couple end up together. I need to know what the mystery is that needs to be solved. Like, it is just, I cannot do anything else because I need to know what happens in this show. A really helpful question that you might want to ask yourself, and this actually was said to me by somebody. I went to Morocco for Christmas on one of those group trips 5 years ago, and somebody said this to me and I loved it. If you're out there watching, thanks. It was about life, but the question was, are you running away from something or are you running towards something? And I think that is a really good question when you're trying to observe what it is about the TV or the video games or YouTube that is pulling you. Yes, there's a degree of habit, but is it that you are trying to avoid something and run away and hide? Or is it that there's something about what you are consuming that is just pulling you towards it that you really feel like you can't escape from? So let's get on to the tips. I'm going to start first of all with proactive, preventative measures. I mentioned in my last video that the most important thing you can do, the best way that you can help yourself, is to provide environmental blockers that stop you from getting started or continuing. Don't rely on self-discipline and willpower. That's a whole whack concept in itself. And if you have ADHD, you can't just pull that out of your ass, right? You can't just be like, I'm just gonna be self-disciplined now. This is not how it works, right? It's a lie. It's a myth. It's a misunderstanding. It's an untruth. It's a unfair idea that we've been sold. Anyway, there's 2 ways that I do this for myself. So I have an app blocker called Freedom. You can have a free version, or if you want to set up schedules, you can have a paid for version. It's not perfect, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but it does the job. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to try it. So what that does for me is for all of my social media accounts, all of them, LinkedIn and Instagram, for YouTube Studio, so I don't keep checking all of my analytics all of the time. And then for streaming services, YouTube, I will set up times of day where I am physically cannot access those platforms. So it blocks the apps across all of my devices. It blocks the websites across all of my devices. I've set it so I can't go in and turn it off. Like I cannot access it. This is the kind of restriction that we need. So sometimes I have that on a schedule, or sometimes I will just like catch myself and be like, nope, let's block it now before it's too late. The second thing that I have, because the problem with that app is that I couldn't block my television, is I have a plug timer for my TV. I think there are fancier ways that you can do this, so let me know in the comments if you know how, in terms of like, what I really wanted to do was set up like a Google routine type thing where it would block like Wi-Fi at a certain time, or get a smart plug to like block it, but I just went old school. So I have a plug timer. Again, I'll put it in the description if you want to get it yourself. Set it to certain times of day so you cannot turn the TV on. It's not a perfect solution, because if I was really that bothered, I would just open the cupboard, unplug it all, and then plug the TV back in. But it's enough of a restriction and like an environmental barrier to at least know in myself that like, if I go into that cupboard, shit's gonna happen. The day could be a write-off. And in terms of getting over that just habitual thing of like sit down and watch TV, if I have it blocked in the morning, then I'll come down and go like that to turn the TV on. Doesn't work. Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to be watching that. Go do something else. In terms of environmental restrictions, I honestly think those are the 2 most important and most helpful things. Like, just don't even let yourself have access to the thing. But that's not a perfect solution, because these are all things that we also enjoy, right? Like if you're playing video games or watching TV, it's because in your recreation time, that's something that brings you joy and it's fun for you. So part of the struggle is that sometimes you do want to do it, but you don't want to get pulled in and get stuck in it. So here are my tips to manage your time spent on TV, video games, streaming platforms. Number 1, acknowledge that if you are going to start the show or start the game, you're going to lose a day. Right? Like, just be honest and open with yourself about the fact that that is going to happen. So what I try and do now, if there's a new series of a show that I want to binge watch, I'm not going to start that until Saturday. Like, I'm not going to put it on until I know that I can lose a whole day for it. And it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit easier to negotiate that with yourself when you understand the magnitude of the decision that you are making. Secondly, this might seem a little bit odd, but if there is a time restriction to it, letting yourself do it is also okay. So the example that I'll give here is, I thought that I'd been ruined by the fact that now we have streaming services that everything is available all of the time. It's part of the problem, because you can just watch a whole series in a day. Whereas back in the day, you would have like a show that would be on at 8 o'clock at night, right? That's perfect. You're giving me the environmental restrictions, but that's not how life is now. And when the new season of The Summer I Turned Pretty came out and I was excited to watch it, I thought, amazing, great, they're releasing it on a weekly schedule, so I won't binge watch it and get sucked into it and get stuck, because I'll only be able to watch 1 episode a week. The problem was that episode was released at 1 a.m. UK time on a Friday, and I would wake up every Friday morning intensely preoccupied with the fact that there was a new episode out and my life could not continue until I'd watched it. And sometimes on a Thursday, I couldn't get to sleep because I knew that if I just waited till 1 a.m., I'd be able to watch it, right? I know, like, I'm embarrassed saying this because I'm an adult woman, but we need to get over this embarrassment, because, like, it's just the truth, and I know that you see me, and I know that you know that I see you, and we know there's a thing here. In that example, because it was a 50-minute, hour-long episode, I would just let myself watch it. Because if not, I would spend the day feeling this compulsion, this pull towards the fact that I know you are there, and I can't watch you yet, but I need to watch you, so I'm going to watch you. So if it's time limited, let yourself have it, and then move on with your day and do other stuff. Thirdly, if you can, pair it with a different task. Something that is working amazingly for me at the moment, or the last 2 weeks since I got it, is I got a stationary bike in my office here. And so now, if there's a show that I really want to watch, I will watch it while I'm on my bike. I really struggle to get myself to exercise. I get stuck watching TV too much. It's the perfect pairing. Similarly, often if I'm interested in a particular show, or like I do this a lot with comedy, I'll get obsessed with a comedian and I'll watch all of their back catalogue. One of the ways that I get that fix is by listening to like audiobooks or podcast interviews with that person whilst I'm doing house chores. It's pretty much the only thing that will get me to do house chores, is being able to have something that I'm currently really interested in my ears while I do it. So in that way, pairing it kind of like is a bit of a win-win. Next, set a timer. So one of the challenges when we are getting sucked into the show or the video game is that time just completely disappears and we don't realize how much time has been spent. I say I'll be honest, I actually don't struggle with that. But I know lots of you do. Personally, I tend to get frustrated or restless or struggle with the voice in my head that feels guilty sooner than I've got so lost in time that hours and hours have gone by. So actually that isn't something I struggle with, but I'm saying we because I know from your comments, from people that I've coached, people that I speak to, this is a big issue. It is not realizing actually that 4 hours just disappeared. What has happened? So one of the most helpful things there in terms of proactively managing that is by setting yourself a timer. I have a visual timer that is not in my vicinity right now. Somewhere, so I can see like the time that's got left. You might want to set an alarm on your phone, and I would set numerous ones so that if the first one doesn't quite hit, or you're like, oh yeah, I'll just turn that off and I'll come back in a minute, there's a prompt. You need that external thing that jumps in and goes like, hey, that's enough now. It's been an hour, it's been 2 hours, it's been 30 minutes, to remind you to move on with your life. Lastly, finally, actually it's not the last one because I have a bonus tip after this, but lastly from this section, something that has made a massive difference to my life is Flow Club. I will put a link in the description to Flow Club. It is a accountability buddying platform community where you'll have a host and you'll have 8 people within a session. You will come on, you will be on camera, you will say, hey, this is what I'm going to do in this time. You will then go away and work on whatever you're working on while seeing other people, and then you'll come back together at the end and you'll check in. Accountability buddying, body doubling is massively helpful for ADHD. There's something about the presence of other people that keeps us to account, that keeps us on track. Honestly, I do not think I would have gone self-employed again without Flow Club, even with medication, because it provides structure to my day that I cannot impose myself. So I will book an hour or a 2 hour Flow Club. I know I have to be somewhere at a certain time, even though it's just in my office on a call. It holds me to account and gives me that structure. What I found really helpful when it comes to this getting stuck in watching TV is that I find it easier to say to myself, okay, you know what? You've got 45 more minutes until 3 o'clock. Book a Flow Club, let yourself have that TV time. But then at 3 o'clock, you've got somewhere to be. So it adds the structure and accountability. It is a paid for service. This isn't an ad. I honestly just like it is changed my life in a lot of ways. So if you want to try a free trial, I have a link in the description because if you book it through that, you get a 2 week trial rather than a 1 week trial. So feel free to give it a go. I know some people actually use that to watch TV. Like if you wanted to book a Flow Club to say, I'm going to watch TV or play this video game and I'm only going to do it for an hour, that might work too. I personally don't do that because I don't like to mix like the vibe of the tasks that I'm doing. I want my flows to feel like they're sort of work self-care type things. But it might work for you. Almost forgot. Comment on medication. 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 I don't know why I'm repeating medications because I'm thinking. My stimulant medication, 36 milligrams methylphenidate, does help with this. As I mentioned, I think multiple times in my videos, like the medications aren't a complete foolproof method. You want to have structures and strategies around them. So there will be times where, because of the habit, I'll get pulled in and the meds won't, especially if I'm feeling quite overwhelmed with a lot going on and I'm, kind of like, ugh, the meds will help a little bit, but they won't do the job without having these other tools as well. What it does definitely help me do though is regulate, right? That's kind of the point. So I'll be watching TV and when that voice inside my head goes, you need to go and do stuff now, and normally the voice goes, no, 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 either in a fun whimsical way or in a no because you feel bad way. When I'm medicated, that voice goes, it parents me, right? It goes, okay, good point, let's go. Like it's just easy, it's easier to stop yourself on the meds. I feel like I'm throwing so much at you, but there's so much to be thrown thrown at. Okay, bonus tip that has bonused into my head as we've been talking, because I appreciate that. Talking about habit, talking about avoidance and talking about compulsion as kind of 3 reasons behind why you might want to be watching the TV, doing the thing. The tips that I've given you there largely are around habit and compulsion. I haven't really talked a lot about avoidance. So I'm going to give you one major tip that I actually got from my coach that I used to work with at the start of 2022. Oh my God, last year. If you break down what is happening when you're avoiding a negative emotion or avoiding all of the going on inside of your head, and you're just, I always say under a blanket because that's my default, under a blanket watching TV. If you want to be kind to yourself, right? If you want to be kind to yourself, which you should be, what's going on there is that you are trying to find a place of safety to regulate your nervous system, to make your brain feel like less of an absolute dumpster fire. So you're looking for comfort and distraction, right? So one of the things that I worked with my coach that was really helpful was to say, if that's what your body needs, let yourself have it, but find a way to not let it go on for a really long time. So if, say, for example, there's something coming up in the day and you're feeling in ADHD paralysis, you're feeling nervous about it, you've got that dreaded anticipation, and all you want to do is crawl up in a ball, hide, watch TV, play your video game, let yourself do that. Make yourself feel warm, feel comfortable, feel secure, feel safe, giving your nervous system an indication that everything is okay. You're letting yourself have that, right? I'm hugging myself tight because it feels so nice. But make it time limited. So coming back to the tips about a timer, set a 30-minute timer, set an hour timer if that's what you need. And then I know it's hard to pull yourself out of it, but if you spend that time being really present and going, this is what I need right now, rather than, God, I feel so bad about myself because I shouldn't be doing this and I should be doing what I need to do and really guilty. It's easier to come out of it if you've just been fully present and just been like, okay, it's like parenting yourself with comfort, but then parenting yourself with like that reasoned voice. Okay, now we're going to go and do something. That would be my top tip in terms of dealing with just like negative emotions, feeling bad about stuff, worrying about stuff, like that negative kind of, I just want to hide and I just want to avoid. That can be helpful to give yourself a time limited amount of distraction and support that you can then move forward from. I feel like I've thrown loads at you. I know you'll let me know in the comments as always, but please do. What are your thoughts? I get into my head a little bit about how long these videos are, and when I start talking, I'm like, but this could be a whole section in itself, and this could be a whole section in itself. So let me know if you would prefer these to be broken down into like more bite-sized chunks. Are the chapters enough in themselves for you to like skip through and go to where you want to go? Let me know. I'd love to know. I'm not going to go and watch TV because I am going to my co-working space now. A very helpful additional accountability to stop me watching TV because I will be in a lovely place in the presence of other people without one. Oh, subscribe if you haven't. That's a thing I always forget to say, but I just think if you want to, you will. But maybe you want to be reminded. Okay, bye.